can be really hard for people. This is often where you'll see people start to dilute themselves and start to slow down and have a lot of fear creep in and anxiety, to be honest, because they end up not living their truth. They dilute themselves for people in their life. So what I would say with that particular group of people is to understand that you are not there to change them. You are there to be an example of what's possible. Welcome to Whole Fit Talks. This is a show just for you, somebody interested in taking ownership of your health, leading your life, and living your legacy. And I'm so pumped you're here because I am another you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing this out with your friends and with your teams. Let's dive into this week's episode. I need water. Story of my life. Is this your water? Yours is empty too. I was actually thinking about that today, how I am always at the bottom of my water bottle. Oh, look at, we have so many options. What's up, friends?
Hi, friends.
So here's what's up. I have not done a podcast in quite the while.
It's probably been over a year for
It's
me.
been a long time.
Yeah.
And we have a night to ourselves tonight, and we're going to go out for dinner soon. We're going to come back home after and hop on here and do a podcast. And then we're like, you know what, let's do it right now, because then we won't have to deal with lighting issues.
Let's be honest, the
the main key is always the lighting.
Yeah.
Those of you that do video, you know this. It's always a lighting issue. I think we sound okay, though. We should probably sound better on Facebook. Instagram, you might get the echoes of the house, but our kids are with his mom for the night. What's up?
Yeah, so we decided to spend our night with you guys.
So yeah, here we are. And you know, I just want to open up by saying it's kind of one of those times of the year where everybody's thinking about fall. Everyone's thinking about their approach in life, their schedules, their routines and systems. And I've been doing a lot of that too. I've been doing a lot on the back end, like thinking about my systems, thinking about my approach. We have a lot of growth ahead business-wise. And so that's where I've been cleaning up my approach, like I'm sure many of you are doing. I actually, earlier today on Facebook, I was telling you about this earlier, I posted to my personal Facebook wall this proposition, I guess, looking for somebody to create this tool, because apparently it doesn't exist, to clean up Facebook groups. So because part of my process right now is thinking about what has impact. So thinking about this podcast, for example, and how I want to see it evolve, how I know it needs to evolve. Something I realized throughout the last few months was it needs to be a lot less rigid, you know, not, I can't be confined to a time and place that I have to like be somewhere. Do you guys relate to that feeling where it's like, my schedule, I am at my best when I have like complete freedom within my day, right? And then I end up showing up more, I end up doing a lot more impromptu stuff. And the way that I had set up the podcast, which for those of you that have been around for a while, you know that it started on Periscope, right? Who here was around for the Periscope days? Show me something. When I started that 3 years ago?
No, it was 4 years ago.
4 years ago. It was like weekly at a certain time, and then it evolved eventually over to Facebook. We started, you know, and then I took it to monthly so we could have more robust questions. But what I realized was I can't be contained. I need just like freedom to show up in this way. So we're playing around with this tonight. You and I are going to do questions
And answers.
and answers,
Yep.
not just questions. We have a whole queue. And we're going to do some live stuff too here. Let's hang for 40 minutes. Otherwise, he's going to get super hangry. It just won't be pretty.
For the record, I can't stand that.
Why?
Hangry?
Everyone knows what it means, though.
I know.
So
All right,
get with the program.
Let's get to it. Or did you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say what I was, in part of this cleaning up, I posted today looking for a tool to help with just cleaning up Facebook groups. I use Facebook groups to create a lot of value for our communities. And we have so many people in these groups. And I was looking for a way to really clean it up, honor those that are truly engaged and want to be there. And such a tool does not exist, you guys. So that was just one of the things. But what it led me to do was I created a whole sheet of notes. I'm going to do a podcast episode next week on this topic of preparing for the seasonal shift and cleaning up your processes and all the things to look at that might be creating excess noise in your life. You guys know this is like my jam. I love talking about that topic. Hence the Beautiful Life Lab, right? That's just a culmination of these practices. But anyway, that's coming. In other news, I had my breast implants removed. Not to make you feel all put on the spot, but guys, also, I have a really good blog post coming that has everything in it that I think would be helpful for you if you're in that situation right now, you're thinking about doing this, or if you have any kind of a surgery coming up. The reason it hasn't been posted yet, I have everything ready to go. Again, I'm just looking at my approach with blogging. I'm going to be doing a lot more blogging in the fall, a lot more writing. But I'm also toying with the idea of having a private classroom experience for you guys, free, but private, where we could go a little bit deeper into things that I perhaps can't share super publicly. Okay. So I'm just on the back end. Again, this blog is coming, just so you know. I know I keep saying that. How are you?
Good. Excellent.
Anything you want to share before we go into questions?
No, I think we're good. We'll just take it from here and I'll read some questions off and we'll try to work through it.
We don't always have you here.
No.
For Q&A day.
No.
Although I'd love to have you on more. I think we could do this a lot more.
Well,
when the kids are back in school, I think we could just hang out here on the kitchen island and let it roll. How's our sound? Facebook. Jenny Bittner, I see you're on. Who else is on Facebook? How is our sound? Are we okay? Before we keep going. What I was going to say was, if you guys have questions for
me,
this guy, tonight would be the night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go into a few questions. So if you have questions that you want done on a future podcast, here's what you do. You go to www.hol-fit.com/pod question, POD question. Because there you'll find a really short form. So this is what we're grabbing from tonight. There's and to be honest, a lot of questions come in, but I always look at them and I think, does this serve the whole? So when you ask questions, a sure way to have it answered would be to ask something that you think might help more people than just your specific situation. Okay. All right. You're going to read them, right?
Yeah, I'll read them off.
Let's go.
All right. Our first, you want to put names to the questions or
just first name?
All right. This one's from Lizzie. I would love to hear more about how you maneuvered through an aggressive judgment, jealousy, or pushback from the people who matter most to you as you rose in levels of success and influence. When those people were not on the same growth path as you, especially any close family members, if you're able to touch on that. I think that's
so in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, how you maneuvered through an aggressive judgment, jealousy, or pushback from people close to you in your circle or anyone in your family.
Okay.
So
let's talk about the two kind of circles in our life, right? So Lizzie's talking about family, people, relationships that are part of her life that she wants to maintain. So there's that circle. You don't just evacuate people in that circle.
Right.
When you are in growth, when you are committed to your personal development and like she said, you're rising up, but people in that circle closest to you either aren't on that same wavelength right now, or just aren't as committed as you are to their own growth. There's going to be tension that comes up, and this can be really hard for people. This is often where you'll see people start to dilute themselves and start to slow down and have a lot of fear creep in and anxiety, to be honest, because they end up not living their truth. They dilute themselves for people in their life. So what I would say with that particular group of people is to understand that you are not there to change them. You are there to be an example of what's possible. And do all things with love. You don't need to come at change with this aggression or with feelings of you being more evolved than them. Sometimes that can create that tension, right? What you want to be able to do is really commit to being your best, and through that be an example of what's possible and love them no matter where they're at. Or people are always going to see things through their own lens, right? So when you are changing and growing and developing and your life starts to evolve, and if they're not committed to the same thing, then yes, their initial reaction to that is going to be to want to bring you back down to, not down, but bring you back to a level of comfort
for them.
Comfort. That's right.
For them.
Yeah. Because change is scary for people, right? I think so often the more difficult thing can be in a relationship, right? In a marriage. But then there's the second sphere. And this is a more important one, because keep in mind, the first circle in your life, the people that really matter to you, they want what's best for you, right? And so even at times it can come across as conflict or tension. It's if they are, family that love you, if these are relationships around you, if these truly are your besties, your best friends, they want the best for you, right? So it's important to be patient through that process. But let's talk about the ones that you would not consider your inner circle. They're friends or friends of friends or neighbors or people at church or Facebook people you work with or Facebook friends. This is often the sphere that gets people into more trouble, because that's a dangerous circle to care about the opinions of. Because, and here's rule always. I was gonna say rule number 1, but this is always the rule. For people that are outside of your inner circle, when you find yourself caring about what they think, you must look at the life they're living, and if they are not living a life pretty similar to the one you're looking to create, or if they're not modeling in their life who you are developing into, then you need to just goodbye. If they are challenging you in the growth that you are having. So you're going to change, you're going to evolve. If you're here listening to this right now, for sure, I'm quite positive you're somebody committed to being your best, committed to growing. You're going to have people that are going to try to keep you stuck. It's like the crabs in a bucket.
Yeah.
Tell them what crabs in a bucket is.
Crabs in a bucket. You've got a bunch of crabs in a bucket, and there's always one that's trying to get out. The other crabs will always try to reach up and grab that one trying to get out. That's just in their, I guess it's in their DNA or their.
Yeah, it's just what you see happen.
Right.
The minute someone tries to get out, all the other crabs try to pull it down. Melissa said, what about the ones who take your growth personally?
Well, why even bother talking about those people if that's the case? I don't understand why anyone, if they're your friend or your family or anything else, would want to take that personal. Like, it's not like you're doing anything malicious to hurt them or I think it all comes down to, I think people are more comfortable in their surroundings when you're at their level, or they want to see you at a level that they expect you to be at. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't have the oomph to say, you know what, I'm good. I'm going to break free from whatever you want me to be. Because always at the end of the day, it's you got to go home and be the person that you really want to be. The person you see in the mirror is the one that you want to see looking back at you as the success that you want. And like I always said, that it's always good to have a nice circle. You know who your friends are. You know who your circle are. You know the people that are going to be the ones who support you no matter what. It doesn't mean if it's in business or life or whatever in general.
Keep your circle smaller.
Yeah, you have to keep your circle tight. You have to keep it small. Yeah. I've always had a real big issue with, And we all see it online every single day, right? There's always a quip or a quote or something like that. I don't know. Go on Facebook and read your local news. If there's a story in there that's a feel good story about something, there's always that one guy or one girl that's always got something negative to say. I call them yeah buts. It's like, yeah, that's a good story. Yeah, but you know, the way it turned out wasn't the way I planned, and it's pointless. So
there's a lot of people today that don't truly stand for anything. All they do is tear down people who do.
Yeah.
You really, like, you've got to look at things through the right lens. When you're somebody who's growing and getting more clear on who you are, what matters to you, your truth, and you start to really share that and show up in the world and serve an audience with that, of course you're going to receive heat from people, because unfortunately there appears to be more people that like to sit behind their keyboard and tear down the ones that are truly having an impact than there are people having an impact. And so you just want to be careful that you don't dilute yourself.
Yeah, that's a big point. You don't want to dilute yourself into something, because when it's all done, all you're doing is being someone that the other person wants you to be.
A shapeshifter.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. And what's the point of that? There's no gain in that. There's no gain. So what? You're going to be at someone else's level and they're comfortable. They're going home to sleep at night, and you wake up tomorrow morning and guess what? You haven't grown at all. You haven't gone up the ladder. You're at the same spot. But in your mind, you want to break out, you want to break free, you want to get through that barrier. So always be careful of people that are always, well, you've kind of changed. They're okay. Well, we're good.
Good. Yeah. Shouldn't we? Shouldn't we?
You want to come on the ride with me, or do you just want to stay there? Right. So.
That's the weirdest statement of all time. You've changed. Good. That's the goal, guys. I would die if I went to my high school reunion and somebody says, you haven't changed at all. Yeah. I mean, I hope I look the same a little bit. Younger.
Yeah, younger.
Let's go for younger. All right, next question.
Yep, next question. 1 second.
He's getting used to the system.
Any tips on how to brand yourself? I want to incorporate doTERRA in, but how did you choose your style, your font, your colors, and the way you wanted your website? This part of my brand is new to me. Did you take any trainings? I feel this is crucial to getting your message across to people who don't know or haven't met you before. Thank you for all that you do. That's from Allison.
Here's my 2 cents. If you are looking to create a website like Allison, it should really be your home. It should really reflect who you are. For example, I remember when I first got started in holistic nutrition, when I looked at holistic nutritionists out there in the online space. So again, this is going back about 10 years ago. Everything looked the same. A lot of, I guess the best way I know to describe it was very granola, very vanilla, just not a lot of excitement out there. So I remember when I first started branding, quote unquote, I wanted everything to feel fresh and fun and bright and interactive. That was kind of the goal through that. But I remember sitting with a notebook like this. I actually remember a plane ride home 10 years ago. Do you remember this?
Wow, we've been on a lot of planes.
No, when I designed my logo.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I had a notebook and it was full of like concepts and words, and I sat with it, you guys. I sat and I just scribbled, and then I sat with it for weeks, and I looked at it and I'm like, what is the true essence of what I'm looking to create? And I came up with the logo, and then Whole Fit came from being a kind of a mashup of concepts and words, and it was unique enough, and it needed to be. I knew I needed to do something strong, and I've talked about this before, talking about branding, but I knew it had to be 2 words, 1 syllable, strong. So, whether you're talking about the name of your business or the look and feel of your website, it needs to represent you through and through. This is where I disagree with a lot of the marketing advice that's shared out there today. Okay. And you can go back and listen to my social media podcast episode. I dig a little deeper into this, but you will often hear experts tell you that you're not creating for you, you're creating for your muse, you're creating for your dream client, whatever you want to call them. I totally disagree with that, because I believe you're creating for the you of years ago. You're attracting people to your work because you know how to help them, because you have solved problems in your own life that you're going to help them solve. And so when I'm creating, I always look at things through this lens. I always ask myself, would I be drawn to this? Would I like this website? Would I click on that button to follow that person? Would I want her in my inbox? And I write for her, I write for me. I create for me, okay? And I want to encourage you to think about that for yourself. Is this something you'd be drawn to? Don't try to create something because you think it's the right way or because some branding expert told you this should be your color scheme. You know what? Okay, can I rant for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's really important. One of the most helpful skills, one of the most helpful gifts you could give yourself is to learn how to communicate in the online world in your way. So for example, my website, I taught myself how to build it very simply. I actually used a company called Go Live HQ. They're super awesome. Check them out. I took time last year to teach myself how to build my website. Because guess what I didn't want to do? I didn't want to have to message a web designer every single week to say, hey, can you put up this page for me? It needs to have this look and feel. Can you create this button or this newsletter? No. I wanted to give myself the gift of being able to create with ease and to really convey my message to my audience in the exact way it should be. There's a lot of other ways this plays out in my life, you guys. Like, I'm not sure if I'll ever do another photo shoot again. I'm not sure if I'll ever go to a hair salon again. Like, there's a lot of things where I look at it and I'm like, I know me best and I know how I want to communicate things. And so I love to take the time to give myself the gift of learning how to do that. Okay. Now obviously it's a wise decision to work with experts from time to time, but when it comes to knowing your brand is you. You know, there was no way my website was going to be brown. No way. You know why? Because I live in neon. I'm chill. I want the experience when you go to Whole Fit to feel like we're hanging out and I'm wearing my hot pink pants and we're just hanging out having a coffee and everything's easy, no drama. Okay, that's the look and feel of my website. So a helpful thing can be for you to talk to the people that know you and ask them, what is the feeling of me? And then put that into your branding. That's my feelings on that.
All right. I've gone off script here. I've picked my own question here. I like this one actually. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. This one's from Stephanie. I would love to hear, I would love to hear your standpoint on alcohol. Now, keep in mind, this is coming from a university student.
Oh, cool.
So we're going a little younger here. I'm a young university student who's been using oils for about 5 months now, and recently gave up alcohol. Even though my friends still party and binge drink, I decided it wasn't my scene. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you, Ange.
Real simple.
Yeah.
It's a waste of time. Alcohol does absolutely zero for your body. There are things like coffee that you can find some side benefits to. Phytonutrients, for example, even though there are people who will tell you that coffee is not good for you, there is absolutely no benefit to alcohol. So then comes the question, okay, well, if you're needing to have it to loosen up and have fun, what if at this age, she's in university?
She's a young kid, yeah.
Again, what if you gave yourself a pretty powerful gift and got to know yourself better so you don't need something like that to bring out a level of comfort in your own skin? This is why a lot of people start drinking. And we've had our years.
Yeah, we've all had our years. But I think as you get older, you kind of realize that, it's just one of those things you don't really need. Like, everyone remembers waking up in the morning and feeling that awful feeling. And I've always told you as well too, like, I just don't want that feeling. Like, I want the next day to be like rocket fuel. I want to get out of bed and just get going.
My favorite.
feeling cloudy and gross. I mean, it's just not one of those things that it's just not for me anymore. And the other thing is too, is for this young girl, like this Stephanie, like, you know, it actually shows a little bit of balls to actually go against the grain, especially in that scene, and say, no, I'm good. And they're going to say to you, well, what do you mean? Like, you're good. You don't want to drink with us?
That's hot.
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
And it kind of builds a little bit of character in yourself as well. Now, again, we're not standing on a soapbox here saying,
oh no, we've had our times. When we were first dating, how many, okay, so we grew up, I don't know if anyone here grew up in like Niagara area in Ontario, like St. Catharines, Niagara Falls. There was this thing called Grape and Wine Festival every fall where, and when we were first, like our first couple years of dating, that was hilarious. I mean, you would get completely sloshed.
yeah,
And I would have to like take care of him for a week. But that was like how you rolled back then. And I went to my fair share of keg parties in high school and etc. But to be honest with you, I now might have 1 or 2 glasses of wine a year. It's honestly, and it's really like I might be out for dinner with girlfriends and it just feels like kind of right. That's it. And even then, as I'm saying that, I'm like, it actually, that doesn't even appeal. Like the sound of that doesn't appeal to me like it may have in the past. Here's my thoughts on it. It is distracting your vitality. It's distracting your power. Anything you do, and I'm really obsessed with how can we continue going to that next level. So when you live a low tox lifestyle, when you're eating cleaner food, when you're drinking good water, you're doing all these things, drinking alcohol is just like, it's a sabotage to your life force. It just, what's the point?
Well, again, I think when you get to a certain age and you're sort of thinking ahead, for again, like personally, I look at stuff and go, how is that going to benefit me? How is that going to benefit me right
Honestly,
now?
ask that question of everything.
Well, that's what I was getting to. That's the point I was getting to, was like, now you get to a point in your life where you're like, well, how is that going to benefit myself or my family or my health or whatever? And when it pertains to this question here, I just think like, well, you know, is it going to make me feel good tomorrow? No. Are the girls going to come walking in the room in the morning and I'm not up and I'm laying there with a headache or just the cobwebs going through my head and they're looking at me? It's one of those things personally that you really need to look at and say, is it going to help me? And if not, like if you want to set the example for something, the last thing you want to do is have your kids walking in the room and you're laying on the couch and, Daddy, can we do this or can we do that? And you're like, you know what? I can't. I'm kind of not feeling well, girls. Why not? Well, Daddy went out last night and really did nothing productive. But again, I don't want this to sound like I'm standing on a soapbox.
No. I mean,
everyone's got
you learn. You learn along the way. But hey, the sooner you can learn it.
Yeah, the sooner you learn it. Like this girl here, that's awesome. I love the fact that she's saying no and doing all that. And good for her. And I hope she keeps it up. And I said, and there's something to it. What's that?
Nothing.
All right, let me read the next one.
Okay, go.
All right. I'm so excited for the Beautiful Life Lab. I am, however, just about to have a new baby, and there's going to be a lot of unknown and unpredictability in my life for the first little while. How can I maximize the content and worksheets of the lab to make it work for me while I'm postpartum and entering a challenging new season of my life?
Okay. New mom. It's always about like what truly matters. That's the cool thing when you become a parent. It's like you instantly have this spidey sense about what matters and what doesn't, right? It gives you just a really different lens to see things through. So I think it's actually really good timing if you know you're going to be a mom or if you're a brand new mom to go through some of the processes in the lab, in the Beautiful Life Lab. Primarily, I would say of all the worksheets I have in that program, the most important would be the daily and weekly routine. Like at any point in your life, especially seasonally or when you're really moving into a new chapter, you need to take inventory of how you're spending your time and if it's still towards things that matter. And so I think, and this goes for everyone listening, right? As we come into fall, think about what you want your day in the life to look like, because that's up to you 100%. And then think about your week. Think about the things that are on your schedule. Think about what truly needs to be on there and what doesn't. I think a lot of you would benefit by taking your weekly calendar and slashing it in half. Every commitment on there, really challenge it and ask, is this leading to the life you want to create? And so, yeah, that was kind of a specific question, but I think it serves everyone at this point as we come into fall to take a look at both of those things.
All right, next question. This one's from Allison. I picked this one out of the hat too. A little off topic. Okay. Hi, Ange. I love your podcasts. Thank you so much for all that you share with this community. What type of home exercise equipment do you have?
You answer.
Oh, okay. Well,
go for it.
Because we reached the point with the kids that we just found that driving back and forth to the gym and would sort of take up a lot of time, right? You go there, you shower, you come home, all that. And you looked at the time that it took to get there. But getting out the door was hard, everything else. So we kind of decided, like, you know what, let's just keep everything in-house here. And we just went with a couple of the basic things that you actually really need to make it work.
You do not need much.
No, you don't.
No.
You don't at all. One of the first things we did was we installed a chin-up bar. Right? Very simple.
Let's use we loosely.
Yeah, well, we added resistance bands, TRX bands, just barbells, dumbbells, nothing very expensive at all. Nothing very fancy. We have no fancy machines or anything like that. And we just use a lot of body weight stuff, right? When the weather's nice, we go outside and kettlebells are important. You really don't need a lot of weight. Maybe you should one day put up everything that you have.
I actually do. I think I do. If you guys go to the Healthy Home Shop, so if you go to my website and you click on shop, there will be a drop down that says my fave products, something like that. And I have all of the shops organized by like healthy home, office and productivity, healthy insides, glowing skin, that kind of stuff. I think I do have it there. So she asked, do we have a rower? We have a water rower. You've probably seen it on my Instagram. It's cool. You actually row water. The brand is Water Rower, but it's in that. I have it listed there in the shop links. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. In the past episode, I remember you talking about how as you come into your truth and rise up, you will come against resistance and people may leave your life. I am experiencing this currently and I'm struggling with being okay, letting someone go out of my life, even though I know they need oils. How do you balance this? Thanks for all you do. And that's from Sarah.
You know what I want to latch on to there? Maybe they don't need oils. Hey, because this is actually a pretty similar question to the first one. So I don't want to elaborate anymore on that, but let's let go of our perception that everybody needs oils. I mean, yeah, of course, like anything, when you stumble upon a way of living and it changes your life, you feel like you just want everybody to be able to have access to that. But if you have, like, let's say you're really cleaning up your lifestyle. Let's use this example. You start using essential oils and you have a friend who would prefer to, I don't know, take pills for everything. Why do you think that you need to lose sleep over that? Like, hey, listen, I and you are not for everybody. And I certainly don't have the thought in my head that everybody I know needs oils, because I'm showing up for a certain person. I'm showing up for the person that is seeking that. And in many situations has tried everything else, right? So I don't show up for the people who are closed off. I don't show up for the people that are committed to staying where they are, you know? Just something to think about. We're not for everybody.
Let's keep going.
Let's do it. How is your tummy?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
He's good.
Do we have any questions from there?
I don't know. Hey, Insta, Facebook. I don't know. We've got a couple of platforms up. Do you want me to find one while you're looking?
Sure, yeah.
Do you guys have any questions, those of you on live? See a lot of comments.
Okay, I got one for you.
Okay.
All right. Listen to your if you feel like quitting vlog on YouTube.
Vlog, babe.
And I have a follow-up question. When you focus on what you do well and do it, how long do you allow yourself to let it manifest before you present it? That's a good question.
When you focus on what you do well and do it, how long do you allow yourself to let it manifest before you? I don't understand the question.
So basically, when you have a good idea,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
How long does it usually take you to implement that idea?
Oh.
Okay. Like we had this talk today about certain things that you got coming up, right? And you could probably put it out there right now, but knowing you, it's not ready yet. In your head, it's not ready.
Yeah, I feel. Let me speak to those of you that are like perfectionists, like I am. That can really hold you back at times, right? So you want to get something to the point where it's like, okay, enough's enough. Like, stop trying to move this from 80 to 100% ready. 80% is about that mark. Here's what I've noticed when you know it's time to like fire it off, birth the thing, create the thing, you'll have it at around that 80% ready mark, and then you will have multiple encounters with people who ask you about that thing. Or, for example, when I created, like, let me just think about my last thing. If I think about Beautiful Life Lab, that really came into being because I had everything that I had been culminating, grabbing content for years. And really, it was just, it ultimately was created because it was my blueprint for how I run my business, our life, you know, how I keep everything going. And I don't mean how I keep everything going. That sounded like it's a one-man show over here. But what I mean is, as a business owner with a big business and a mom with 2 kids, you know, just how I kind of keep everything in order. So that came, did I just say the same thing 2 different ways? I pretty much did. Sorry. You guys know what I'm saying. That came into being because I hit this point where there was a lot of people asking me, hey, Ange, how do you do this? How do you have systems for this? How do you create your schedule? What's that calendar you just showed on Instagram? So all of a sudden there was all this activity happening around the thing, and I knew it was time to just go, time to release it. So that's what I would say is, like, the best place to start when you're, especially if you're new in business, is you want to look at what's like the number one thing people are always asking you, or at least recently. What's like that main thing people come to you because you have figured that out in your life, you know, and that's what you want to create for initially. That would be my reply to that. It'll keep coming up into the sphere. Sam Armstrong says hi. Remember?
Yeah, of course I remember. Go Dwyer.
I don't know what that means.
Paul Dwyer. Anyways, I just saw one pop up there right now.
Yeah.
Right there. Scroll it down. Yeah, right there. That's always the one that I.
How do you handle a skeptical husband? Yep. Belief is one of my strengths, and I think it scares him on my journey, almost as though he is
slightly jealous.
Jealous.
That was the rest of it.
Oh, okay.
That's a big question. That's a question that comes up quite a lot, especially when you and I are together. It's, you know, I always kind of get the side pull away when we're talking to people in groups, and I get like the tug on my arm and can I ask you a question?
Hey, tell me the truth.
Yeah, from both, like from women and men as well too. So I don't know. You.
What's okay? Riddle me this.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know this. Like, what's the number one thing people ask you when it pertains to, I guess, this topic? the business side or
It's
the work?
okay. From the women, it's always that question right there. It's always, how do I get my husband involved, and or how do I get my husband to like fall in line with what I want to do or what I'm doing? That's always from the women. From the men, it's always like, well, how long did it take you to trust that she knew what she was doing? Which,
I think that's honestly the root.
yeah, again, like it's a personality thing. I really believe it's a personality thing. Again, I'm not trying to go off, or I got a different personality than I think a lot of the people who are asking me that question, like a lot of the men that are asking me that question. You and I've been together for so long that there's always been a trust that.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let's just say a woman's listening to this right now.
Yeah.
Her husband's hanging out in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so she's listening to this, but he's kind of listening to this. What would you say to her that you hope he hears?
Just trust the process. I think.
What is the process?
Well, the process.
What's coming up for them?
Well, that's a tough question, because how does it pertain to us? Or how does it pertain to, there's no global answer for it. It really, I would say the best thing to do is, if you're a wife or you're a husband, no matter what it is, or no matter what you think you're going to say that might make someone mad, you have to communicate through this whole process. And you may have those times where you're going to go at it and they don't believe in what you're doing or whatever, but really lay it out and really talk it out, because eventually you're going to get to the point where you're going to either do it or you're not.
Okay. Can I share what I think? I think it is the trust issue. I think what happens when in a couple, one person has a new idea and wants to do something, and they don't have the buy-in of the other person. Here's what I think happens. At some point in that relationship, you, the person with the new idea, didn't follow through on something in the past. There's been something in the past that taught your spouse that, oh, this is just going to be another one of those ideas that doesn't take flight. So trust is needed in this process. And I think that it goes a long way to really involve your spouse, your partner, in the plans, in your commitment, in goal setting, in in creating that accountability around what you say you're going to do. And put a time frame on it. Say that this is what you're wanting to do. These are your ideas. This is what it's going to take. For example, let's say you're starting doTERRA and you say, and your spouse is like, this is going to be another one of those things. Let them know why. First of all, what is the draw for you to want to do this? And in doTERRA specifically, you guys know this, like 90% we're now at 8 million customers. 90% of them are customers. So of the 10% that decide to do the business, it's almost always a very aligned decision. Okay. You don't see, we were talking about this earlier today. Even in my own experience, I have never once done a business opportunity webinar, because what I know to be true is that doTERRA has to be aligned. You have to be somebody who is working on your own healing and loves this lifestyle, and you eventually want to do the business. And so, because you want to help people, right? I don't want it to ever come first for people. That's just me. I really guard that. I don't ever want this to be something that somebody comes into thinking they're going to just do it as a business opportunity without doing that personal work first. So, and that's why I just want to speak to this question regarding doTERRA, because if let's, I don't know, it just helps me if I think about us in this situation. If I roll back the tapes, and when I first decided to start doing this, there were a couple things that were in place. Number one, I had taught him through how I show up in my business, in the Whole Fit brand, years before I started doTERRA. I had taught him that I'm somebody who takes my work seriously. I didn't have his buy-in right away. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started blogging 11 years ago or so, and he would challenge me on it. Like, what's the point of this? Who are you helping?
Who
How
you-
is
Yeah, who are you trying to talk
how
to?
is this a business? How is, how would this eventually be a business? Like, there were all those questions that happened, and I just kept assuring him that this is what I'm meant to do in the world. I'm meant to help people in this way, and honestly, it would be like a small death to me to go back to a corporate job that made sense. On paper, it made sense to him for me to go back to a corporate job where I was making a lot of money, but I needed to help him understand, like, a part of me would die if I didn't serve my purpose. And so it started there. But then when I started doTERRA, he had already seen so much of the change happen within me, within our home, with the kids, slowly starting with him as well. And so it wasn't this like weird thing. It was like, oh yeah, like you've got to help people in this way, right?
Yeah.
So I think you've got to be patient with that process, to be honest. But I would also be really honest with each other and be upfront. If there has been a time in your history where you didn't do what you said you were going to do, when you had an idea and you let it go, acknowledge that and move forward and let them know how you're not going to do that again. I think that's always what's really at work, is the trust.
Yeah, trust and communication. Those are the two biggest. Well,
Yeah.
I think those are the only two things that really you need to make things happen. All right, here's an easy one.
Okay.
What's your morning routine?
That's not easy. I posted my skincare routine to the blog the other day. And then I like cross posted it into our oil community group. The very first comment was, wow, that sounds like a lot of work. So what's the question?
That was it. What's your morning
Where
routine?
is that question?
I saw it on Instagram.
Oh, you know what? Just go to WholeFit, and I've posted my daily routine. You'll find it there. It's quite involved, but it's like, it's evolved over the years.
Right. Next question. Let's find a good one here.
Okay, I've got one here.
Go ahead.
How do you tackle the question about doTERRA being an MLM company? How do you explain your take on the business model? I have this, I've answered this exact question. If you go to my website and you go to, what page do I have it on?
62.
wholefit.com/nirvana. You like that?
Yeah.
I've answered that question because here's what you're probably not expecting to hear. That's actually the very best part about this business. I'm so glad it's in the MLM model for the customer's experience. I'm really pumped that it's done through this model, because what's the flip side? Somebody goes to Whole Foods and buys doTERRA, gets them home, never knows what to do with them, never feels that sense of community. There's so many beautiful aspects to the fact that this is sold through the MLM model. And to be honest with you, it had to be this way. It couldn't have been any other way. It couldn't have been. If you look at the engine that is doTERRA, the impact that doTERRA is having in the world, it's the largest natural health movement in the world today because it's done through the MLM model. And doTERRA does it very different. Would any of you, let me ask you this honestly. I've been helping people adopt this lifestyle for over 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever felt grossed out or icky from anything I've shared with you? Be honest with me. Like, what does it actually mean to you to know that I am one of the highest ranked leaders in doTERRA and I've never once done a business opportunity webinar? What I want for you, what I want for anybody that I'm helping is, number one, that they see that I model what's possible. I talked about that at the beginning of this stream. I model what's possible and I show up for those that are seeking it. That's it. And this is what you all do if you're building this business, what you do, you're an example of what you teach. If that's not happening, you're going to have issues. if you are truly committed to living and being and leading with your best every day, you do your best, and you have that alignment happening, you're going to have people who want to be a part of what you're doing. That's what makes this business so incredible, because you are able to offer people that experience, that thing that they're actually most starved for, to be in community with people who they can grow together with. That's what we do. That's what we do. Like I wouldn't have ever been part of another MLM business. We were actually just talking about this at lunch today. I forget what we were actually talking about, and then it led to this. Oh, I know what it was. I was talking about how people quit.
Yeah.
And they quit. Let's say somebody's building DoTerra, and they quit their business. It's never because of DoTerra. It's never because of the business model. It's always because there's something that's not in alignment in their life. And the issue when somebody, so like this business is actually, if any of you have been entrepreneurs before, and then you come in, you start building DoTerra, you realize like, whew, this is actually not hard compared to just being an entrepreneur and having to really build something. The issue when somebody is building DoTerra and then they quit in DoTerra, they will keep repeating that pattern until they get themselves right, until they come into a place of really being in alignment, or they really never should have been doing it because it just wasn't aligned for them, which is why I believe it's so important that everybody starts as a customer and that it's a choice from there. So it's always like one of two scenarios that are playing out. But I'm so glad this work is within this model, because it is, honestly, you guys, it is the way that people become free. Period. End of story. It had to be this way. So that's my reply. But you can go look at wholefit.com/nirvana www if you want to see a more expanded response to that.
All right. Next question. How many more are you doing?
I don't know. Let's do 2 more.
All right. And feel free to put some questions up there too as well.
I've got a few here.
All right. Do you want to read it or do you want me to do it?
Go for it.
All right. I keep contemplating starting a doTERRA biz, but I'm also a full-time teacher with no intention of ever quitting. I love my job. I'm drawn to these oils and their power. I'm scared to take a leap of faith or taking on too much. How would you suggest I take on the biz with a full-time and fulfilling day job?
The busiest people are the most successful. So just because you have a full-time job or you have 4 kids or whatever the story is, that doesn't limit you at all. It in fact puts you in a more winning position, because it's true, the people that have more time on their hands actually don't get a lot done. It's just the way it goes. So what I would say is you leverage, you get strategic with your time, you figure out, I mean, we all have our passions. That's why, like, people always ask, like, how come you're still a firefighter? Because that's like what fulfills him. He loves it, right? So we make it work. We make it like, yeah, obviously you could have retired about 4 years ago, but you love what you do. Mm-hmm. And that's the most important thing. So just because you start building doTERRA and let's say you build a 6 or 7 figure income, it doesn't mean you have to stop being a teacher if that's what lights you up. And honestly, people have done it left and right. You don't have to look far even in doTERRA to see success. But, I think I get concerned when I see people like retiring just because they can.
Because they can.
I think it's really important that you're fulfilled,
Yeah.
Hey, Mary, she asked, Chris, can you give advice for someone who is thinking of becoming a firefighter? There's a good one for you.
Do you want me to answer that?
You know what?
I can actually email her.
I've got her email, but why don't you answer that live and then I'll find one more to take, okay?
Okay. This is going a little off topic then.
No.
You sure?
Anything goes.
All right. First of all, I would say you have to know that you really want to do that job for sure. Like 100%. It's not a glamorous job at all. It may look like it's a glamorous job.
You look really good in the calendar.
Whatever. I was never in the calendar. I've never done a calendar picture. Nothing. Let's get that on the record.
Sorry to distract. Go ahead.
Okay. yeah, one of the first things you need to do is realize that it's not a job that is glamorous at all. Not one bit. There's nothing that you see on TV that makes it look like that in real life. So you have to be prepared.
Like backdraft.
Yeah. You really have to be prepared to see some things and do some things and sacrifice a lot of your emotional state, a lot of your physical state, and a lot of your compassion and your, what's the word I'm looking for? You don't know.
In terms of sacrifice?
Yeah, it's one of these things that it looks good, I think, on paper because everyone sees the TV version or whatever like that. But so you really have to ask yourself that question: am I really willing to give up all those things that I had mentioned? But after that, really, it's not. There's courses you have to take. You have to go away to schools.
You know what? Can we, like, we were talking about this earlier too.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of time to talk today. Can I, like, let's just try to sum up what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You had a couple of really tough shifts.
Yeah.
This past week, like you saw some dark stuff, right?
Yeah.
So we were talking about how,
Mary, I'll email you. I'll email it to you. What you need.
Yeah, but we were talking about how you see things that you can't unsee.
Mm-hmm.
You go to things that many people would not want to see, would never really see in their lifetime, and there's a certain level of, you have to really be prepared for that. And we were talking about how there's various things in your life that help you deal with those things that I think would be really helpful for anybody looking to get into that job. Some of the things that we talked about earlier were just that stability that you have at home,
right?
Knowing when you come in this door, we've got our 2 girls and we keep our life pretty drama free. And by that, I mean, like, we don't have a ton on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
You know that when you come in this door, you can just feel at home and feel that peace and that love, and you're surrounded by that. And that helps you when you're on the job. And then also the guys you work with, I think it's helpful if somebody's wanting to be on the job that they have solid relationships in their life. I think that really comes into play when you have those hard shifts and you've got to leave the hall and leave it there in a way.
I think looking back, it's not about the physicality. It's not about the how much schooling you have, how much courses you've taken, your medical, whatever.
That's a good point.
It really, again, 20 years now, looking back, I think if someone's looking to get started in this or anything, like we could be talking about nursing or policing or whatever, you really have to have a stable foundation, meaning you have to, surround yourself with good people, surround yourself with family that you are excited to come home to see. One of the other things too that I would always suggest to people is, like, know what you're in for. Like, you get hired for these jobs. Like, that's part of the job. Mm-hmm. This will be part of what you do. Mm-hmm. Right. We just kind of got started talking about this morning. It was a really bad weekend. Yeah, it was a really bad weekend. I picked up an extra shift and I woke up this morning in a cold sweat and I could not get it out of my head. At 5 o'clock this morning, I woke up, and for some reason I could not get it out of my head. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to lay there and I'll just kind of brush it off. But I knew that if I'd stay there any longer, it would just get worse and worse and worse. And I could feel myself with that cold, gross sweat. So I thought, you know what, I got to get up. I got to get moving. I got to get up. That'll get my mind off it. And I've always considered myself someone that's not, I have a really, really good ability, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, a really good ability to sort of store stuff like that away. But for some reason this morning, it just kind of came back to me in the moment or the day after is fine, but it really came back to me today. And what you and I were talking about was, it's not about being able to just like push it away. I think a lot of it has to do with the foundations. One of my best friends' wife is on here, and she just gave a thumbs up. And I will say, I work with her.
Who's on the job with
Who's
you.
on the job with me. I work with her husband. And, you know, I'm so lucky to have guys like that around, because again, it's sort of like your secondary family. You talk about coming home and seeing the kids in the morning, and that's what makes it worth it. And that's what makes things forget. But I'm so lucky to have guys that I work with who kind of take that burden off of you when you do this stuff, because we all feel the same. We all have the same emotions. We're all in the same spot when stuff like that happens. But I don't know, how do we get...
Hold on one sec. Yeah. Instagram, we're going to lose you in 10 seconds. So if you want to continue this over on the brand page, we'll be there.
Yeah.
Well, you know, two things you just said that I wanted to latch onto. You know, you said you have this ability to kind of like shut things down so that you can, in the moment, continue the work that needs to be done in that moment, right? Yeah. Like you're able to watch from what's happening in order to show up and be the best person in that moment for the job. Right. But that doesn't mean that just because, and this is what we were talking about earlier, it doesn't mean that just because you have that ability that it just poof goes away and you come home and it's like, you don't have to think about it anymore. That always lives, it stays in our cells. This is the thing with emotion. You need to be able to, for anybody looking to get into this work, like I think you have to have that stability around you in your relationships, because you have to be able to talk through those things that you see. And I think honestly, that's the bigger deal these days. You can, like, when you got on the job over 20 years ago, you went to Texas A&M. Back then, it wasn't like, that wasn't what everyone was doing that really set you apart. And now that's kind of like the standard, is that you go to firefighting school before you even apply. There's a lot of, you know, people who have PhDs and they're super book smart, right? Yeah. But in that job, you have to be able to count on the relationships around you, and you have to be able to really draw on your life experience to show up in the moment. Right. And to work with guys that also have that. Like the team is so important. I'm so awesome. Like the guys that you work with, because the things that you guys deal with together, it's a strong unit. Like you really learn about the power of team in situations like that. But the other thing that we were talking about earlier was just, people will often say to you, I don't know how, you know, how do you see things like that? And whatever. And we were talking about how you're prepared for that. This is what you do. It happened.
Right? It happened a while ago, well, it wasn't that long ago. It was just a bad scene. And the person who let us in was just like, I don't know how you guys do what you do. I don't know how, because he was kind of freaking out. And, you know, and in the moment I just looked at him, I go, well, I understand what you're feeling, but we do this all the time. We see it all the time. And how we got talking about that was how it's one of those things where you want to let people know that that's why you need people like us around, because we have that mentality that we're okay with that. Right.
Yeah. I mean, to be a first responder in any way is a huge role. And I think the thing I keep coming back to when I think about what you do, when I think about people in those roles, there's some on right now, you know, like an ER nurse, Brooke, your stability really matters. And in the relationships in your life that support that, because you have to see things and deal with things that the average person doesn't. And it's a big decision, I think, to go into a role like that. But
again, this could be for like anything where you're dealing with, you know, you're going to have to deal with stuff that isn't good, right? Yeah. You just know it. And kind of to bring it all back around, it's not something that, you know, it's a rewarding job. It's a fulfilling job. But I always like to tell people, you know what, if you know anything about baseball, if I was to look at my batting average of good things that happen compared to bad things that happen, I would definitely not be a Hall of Famer. I'd be hitting about $120. So there's a lot of losses, right? I've said this to you, like in this business, there's a lot of losses, and I don't mean of just life, but just tragedy, and you
Yeah, you
see
could
a lot of
really,
poverty, you see a lot of mental health issues. You go to these fires, you go to these houses, and you walk out and you think you did a good job because you put a fire out or whatever, but you leave, you pack up, you leave, and then those people are left to deal with no house, no clothes, nothing. Their whole livelihood's gone, right?
yeah.
And that's something you can't dwell on for too long because you would not go back to work the next day. But it's one of these things that when you really take a deep dive into it, you have to be prepared for that. And when I go back to that whole thing about, if it was a batting average, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Like, it's a job that you do not get a lot of wins all the time, but when you do, they taste magnificent. Like, they really do taste magnificent, and it makes it all worth it. Again, I'm not complaining about it or anything like that, but I think in the world that we live in today of, emotional health and mental health and PTSD and everything else, like, everyone deals with it a different way. But if you're asking me about it, I think the one key factor is have stability in your life. Like, whether that stability be, an early morning routine, or going
Yeah.
for a run, or being able to know your limitations of what's going to really push you over the edge. Honestly, again, this is just myself speaking, but stay away from the booze, get to bed early, get your sleep, spend time with your family, watch your kids grow, hang out with them, be with your wife. Because you're going to get in this other world where you don't know what's going to happen, and you may do something or may see something that completely changes the course of your life. And if you're not stable, then that could really throw a curveball. And I've seen it, like, again, like 20 years doing this job. I mean, I've seen a lot of tough dudes, kind of go the other way, and you look back on things and you think, well, they just didn't have that stability in their life. And again, I'm not trying to point a finger at anyone and say I'm perfect, because we've all had our problems, but it's the one key ingredient, I think, that will make a job like that, or a job in public service, that you're going to have to really lock down,
There's a lot of really touching comments over on the Facebook wall, just of, like, Sandra was sharing, thanks for having this conversation. She's a police officer's wife, and they know all the things that come home with that job. And just, yeah, a lot of comments. Sherry wrote, hearing this makes me want to reach out to my friends who are first responders and make sure they're okay. Yeah, like, relationships are really the glue within that, right? It's,
yeah,
follow that.
But again, I come from a point of view of, I'm not sharing this with people because I want people to, say, pat me on the back or say thanks for your service or whatever like that. I think it's more of a share, because you really have to, again, I keep going back to that word, you really have to have that stability in your home life and everywhere else other than the job. Because if you don't, you're really going to see a lot of stuff that will really, really mess with your head. And again, I've told you a million times, and you kind of get angry at me because I'm like, well, no, it's good. It's fine. Or, whatever.
I get angry.
Well, not angry. It's, again,
What are you talking about though?
Well, okay. So for example, like when we talk about stuff that we'll do at work or I see, and you find it hard to understand why I'm not more shooken up about it, right? We've had that talk where you're like, well, you can't just blow it off like that.
Well, because I worry that that's now sitting in here, and my fear has always been that if you can shut it down like that, then you're not feeling the higher emotions to the extent that you could. But and that was also what we talked about earlier. I'm almost like, we were saying this earlier, we need to stop talking about some things. We should really save them for when we can talk it out.
Like, if we had a whole microphone upstairs when we were talking about that.
It was a good talk. It was good because we were just acknowledging that one of the helpful things that you do is you redirect that emotion. So if you come home and you're feeling like that heaviness, you redirect it into your love with the girls.
Yeah.
It helps you feel it deeper, you know, whereas I've always worried that if you were shutting that off, it would cause you to not feel.
Yeah. And shut everything else off in your life. And I mean, there's some things that you do have to come home and take a moment. I mean, and just kind of recharge and sort of reset yourself when stuff like that does happen. But to know that there's people there that like want to see you walk through that door and they love seeing you makes the world a difference. We
love seeing you.
Yeah, I mean, it makes the world a difference. But again, this is just, keep in mind, like, this is just my personal feeling. And I think I have sort of earned a right or a spot at the table to talk about this sort of topic because it has been so long.
Yeah, I mean,
I look back and just I've forgotten more that I already know, or what's the saying. But anyways, again, back to my original point, you have to have that stability in your life. You have to have a good base because anyone can flow through that job, but there's going to come a time where that day sucks.
Yeah, because I think there is that perception that it's like the greatest job in the world.
Yeah.
It is.
And it really is.
Every time we talk to somebody, it's like, you're a firefighter.
Yeah.
Oh man, like that must be so cool. But it's super heavy.
Yeah,
and there are a lot of good times. But
yeah, there's great times and there's times where like you just like, yeah, let's do that again, and it's not the coolness factor. It's not wearing the t-shirt out and like, it's not that. It's being with the guys and knowing that he's got your back and I have this guy's back. But, we just do see a lot of damage out there. And I think over the years, like you have to be careful not to let that stuff pile up and pile up and pile up. And, just be careful. My other point is be careful in talking to someone that, may be a first responder or an ER nurse or whatever, as someone who isn't really in that world, because you don't want to trigger stuff in them that they've kind of put away. Right. And we've had that talk again today where, I had a friend that I had coffee with and he had a horrible incident years ago and someone, makes conversation and says, oh, I remember that. Yeah, you were there. And it completely triggered him to think like, why would you bring that up? Right? Why would you bring that up? Like, that was a horrible memory for me. It's completely gone. It means nothing to you. You don't know what it was like to be there. And now the emotions keep coming back. And this is a guy who's like a fireman's fireman and he's great and there's no problems. It's what I'm telling people is just be very careful how you approach the subject, because for you to say, oh yeah, that's got to be cool, or yeah, that must suck to see that person is looking at you thinking like,
there's a lot of layers.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to that, and so we don't always feel like talking about that. So anyways, that's just, again, that's my opinion on that whole thing. And if it's something that we want to keep going on, we could do another.
No, that could be a whole episode, I suspect. But anyway, you ready for dinner?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's wrap this up. Let's do this again.
Yeah, for sure.
You guys feeling me on the keeping it casual? I like it. If you have questions you want to send in, I don't even have my girl Jill on right now to type things in for me. So this is how casual we're being. I'm literally typing. Okay, you can shoot those in. They'll go to the they'll go to the podcast inbox. And I don't know. I'm going to do. Well, you can join me to do some more episodes next week. Got some topics I want to jam on. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys. You have a good rest of your night. We're going to go have dinner, and we'll see you back here soon.
See ya.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you liked the content, please consider
popping over to iTunes and leaving a review so that more people can find this show. If you have a question or a topic suggestion for future shows, head over to wholefit.com/pod question. You can also find all past episodes and show notes at wholefit.com/podcast. See you next time.